and welcome to today's episode of The Lovable Madman. Now, when Batwoman began airing on the CW, it picked up Kate Kane's journey 3 years after Batman disappeared. This, of course, set up the mystery of what happened to dear old Bruce. However, this is not the first time that Batman and his corner of the world have been mentioned within the Arrowverse. Early on in Arrow, Oliver Queen took on many of the Bat's traditional rogues, such as Anarchy or Firefly, and Season 3's main villain was even Ra's al Ghul. In Season 6, Oliver name-dropped Bruce Wayne during a press conference, and over on Supergirl, Kara mentions that her cousin once worked with a vigilante who had lots of gadgets and tons of demons. Or was it tons of gadgets and lots of demons? Either way, there's Batwoman spoilers coming up. Now, the Dark Knight is not the only mysteriously missing member of the Bat family. Obviously, there's Kate Kane, who disappeared at the beginning of Season 2, and her disappearance may or may not tie into this theory and the rest of the Bat family. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, Lucius Fox and Alfred Pennyworth have both been mentioned. Lucius was murdered a few years before Batwoman started, and Alfred moved back to London after Batman disappeared. However, that is not the end of the list. Nightwing, Oracle, Robin, and Azrael have all been confirmed to exist. Now, it is implied that Batman broke after he snapped and killed the Joker, and that's what made him disappear. However, I don't like this for a few reasons. One, it doesn't actually tell us what happened to Batman or the other members of the Bat family. And two, Batman's been dealing with the Joker for a long time at this point. He's not just gonna snap one day and kill the guy. Beyond that, it's just a lazy excuse. Now, we can piece together a vague timeline of these heroes based on the clues that have been given to us. We know that Batman was active by 2003 and probably had been for a couple of years at that point. We know that over the next 12 years, he either meets or reconnects with Talia al Ghul, and she gives him the Suit of Sorrows. He then passes the suit along to another vigilante who would become Azrael. We know that by 2013, Nightwing was active in Bloodhaven, which means the original Robin had grown up, moved on, and taken on this new identity of Nightwing. We know that by 2016, a very similar thing had happened with Oracle. She was Batgirl, grew up, became paralyzed, and took on the name of Oracle. And as an interesting side note, Batgirl was not amongst the list of options said by Vesper Fairchild after Kate Kane came on the scene. When Talia al Ghul reemerges in Slabside, she tells Oliver that she had run afoul an old acquaintance in Gotham. Now, this encounter happened in 2017, 2 years after Batman had disappeared, and a full year before Batwoman would arrive. And in 2018, Vesper Fairchild mentioned that Batman's seeming return might have to do with him finally coming back from Robin's graduation. Now, we know this is a second, younger Robin, because as we stated, the original Robin is now Nightwing and would have conceivably graduated many years before Batman disappeared. And by that time in 2018, just the tech support would be left behind. And that's a lot of heroes to go missing over a relatively short amount of time. So, what happened to him? I mean, they could have retired, but Luke would have said something, or they would have shown up to investigate the new Batwoman. I mean, I guess they could have died, but again, Luke would have said something, or much like his father's murder, it would have become a plot point. And I guess, like Oliver, they could have gone on missions throughout the multiverse through from the Monitor. The problem with this, though, is that when they disappeared, the Monitor was still testing and destroying other universes. And I mean, no, the Monitor doesn't really follow a linear progression of time, but the only reason Oliver was doing anything for him in the first place was because they made a deal. So what options does that actually leave us with?
Beware the court of owls that watches all the time, gazing from the shadows behind cement and lime. They see you at the hearth. They see you in your bed. Take care, beware, or they will send
a talon for your head.
That's right. My theory is that it was the Court of Owls. If you're unfamiliar with the Court of Owls, in the comics there is a secret society that has been ruling Gotham from the shadows since the early 1600s. They're made up of some of the city's wealthiest families, use assassins known as talents, and have even figured out a way to reanimate the dead. Now, there's been no mention of them anywhere in the Arrowverse, which is why this is perfect. They're nothing more than a nursery rhyme used to scare Gotham's children. Hell, even Batman isn't well known outside of Gotham, with Oliver Queen, one of the most paranoid individuals on the planet, believing him to be nothing more than an urban legend. So, Batman would arrive on the scene, and the court would allow him to be a vigilante because it fits in with their plans. He's fighting the criminals and mobsters that aren't a part of their cult. They profit from his actions because they don't have to use their own resources. Now, in the comics, Batman does eventually discover that the court is in fact real, and they send a talent out to assassinate him. This obviously fails because he's, Batman. However, I think the show should take a different approach. I think that he should never actually learn of the court's existence, but he just outlives his usefulness to them. I like this better for a couple of reasons. One, it leaves the door open for more interesting paths for storytelling down the line. And two, explains why Luke is never mentioned. Anyway, the Owls aren't going to let such a talented individual go to waste, and so they start brainwashing him. Slowly, over time, they make him more and more violent and less moral. And it's this slow, subtle conditioning that allows him to eventually go too far and kill the Joker. That's what breaks the Bat. That's what brings him under the court's control and allows him to become a talent. Now, that does leave Robin and Azrael running around Gotham, and Robin would presumably be a teenager at this point and wouldn't be that hard to convert, especially if they did that at the same time they did Batman. Now, Azrael wears the Suit of Sorrows, which in the comics does increase speed and strength, but if the user doesn't have a pure heart and soul, it also drives them insane. 2 out of the 3 users did just that. They went insane after using the suit. So depending on which version of Azrael the show decided to go with, it wouldn't be that hard to have him either drive himself insane or have the court interfere and drive him insane by pressuring him. Now, with both their mentor and their successor suddenly vanishing, Nightwing and Oracle would return to Gotham to try and investigate what happened. It's around this time that Talia would return, fresh off of her experience on Lian Yu. Not fully recovered from it, she would lose to Nightwing, who would send her off to Slabside. It's shortly after this that the court would capture Nightwing and Oracle and begin the process of turning them into Talons as well. Now, with all these vigilantes gone, that leaves the way open for the Crows to heroically step in and help the struggling Gotham City Police Department. However, the Crows only care about helping those who can pay, and that fits in perfectly with the court's plans. Until a new Bat arrives on the scene, and that will not fly. Now, we know Black Mask is the one responsible for destroying Kate Kane's plane and holding her prisoner. In the most recent episode, he's hired a woman named Enigma to brainwash Kate. Now, Enigma could be related to the Court of Owls, as her brainwashing ability would be very useful in creating new Talons and just general mayhem. What do you think? Did the Court of Owls have something to do with Batman's disappearance? What about the other members of the Bat family? What happened to all of them? Were they ever meant to make an appearance in the show, or were they just Easter eggs? Leave your answers to any of these questions in the comments below. Whether you agreed with the theory or disagreed with the theory, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more from me, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to know when I post a new video. Today's trivia: Kate Kane first appeared in the summer of 2006. However, the first person to hold the title of Batwoman was Kathy Kane, who debuted 50 years earlier. Again, thank you for watching the video, and remember, we're all mad here.